We're good.
Awesome. Good morning.
Good morning.
So excited. Centra Volunteer Services. Betsy Jones, how are you?
I'm doing well.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So, I love mission statements. I always start these podcasts and I read mission statements, and I love Centra's. We exist to improve the health and quality of life for the communities we serve, which is an incredible mission statement. They're supposed to be short and to the point, and I think it's wonderful because Centra is so broad and covers so many different areas, which is unbelievable. And we were talking before we sort of came on air about a mutual friend we have that actually worked with you. And so I know a little bit about Centra Volunteer Services, but you're here to tell us everything about Centra Volunteer
correct.
Services. And my first question is, because having spoken to my friends so many times, how many volunteers do you all have?
So currently we have between both hospitals and our outlying service areas. So we're talking about Lynchburg General Hospital, Virginia Baptist Hospital, about 400 volunteers.
That's crazy.
Yes.
Now, do you actually have volunteers at Central Bedford Memorial?
We do.
Uh-huh.
We do. But they don't fall under the same office as ours. They are separate, independently run with different management, but still under Centra umbrella.
Of course, yeah. So, and what about your facilities? I guess you have a facility, is it Gretna? Or?
We do. So we have the Gretna ED,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a cardiac rehab there, and we have volunteers at both the ED and the cardiac rehab, and then we have Gretna PACE.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a day program for senior adults, and so we have volunteers there as well. And some of our other outlying service areas here at the Jamerson Y
Mm-hmm.
for those adults that are rehabbing from some type of health issue. So we have volunteers that assist there in their program, and the cardiac rehab in Lynchburg, and the Pearson Cancer Center. So we cover a lot of outlying areas as well.
So, just a guesstimate, altogether, from all of the different facilities, maybe a couple of thousand volunteers.
Well, so under our umbrella through Lynchburg General Hospital and Virginia Baptist, 400 around, and then probably another maybe 50 between Southside and Bedford Memorial.
Okay. So still, that's a lot of people.
It is a lot of people, but really our numbers are down from pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So pre-COVID, we had around 750 volunteers,
Mm-hmm.
and so our program has taken quite a hit, but we are working very hard to rebuild that program.
And what's the process for someone to become a volunteer?
So they would go on Centra's website at
Mm-hmm.
www.centrahealth.com and search volunteer, and they can put in an application for the facility that they're interested in, whether it be Lynchburg General Hospital, Virginia Baptist Hospital, Southside, or Bedford Memorial.
Mm-hmm. I was reading some information on the website, and it was not common sense at first, but then when I read the information, it made sense. And I think this is very important to know, for people to know, how cautious Centra is. Because you're not just letting someone behind a wheelchair to push their loved one. These people, there's an application process. Is there a criminal check?
There is. There's a criminal background check. Then they also visit our HealthWorks office to make sure that their vaccinations and health records are up to date, and we are happy to assist them if they need vaccinations. There's no charge. We're happy to bring all of that up to date. And then there's an interview process, just, trying to decide why they're wanting to volunteer. And of course, to see where they're looking to be placed in what service area, because we want it to be a good fit as well. We want it to be rewarding for the volunteer, and we want to make sure that it's going to be rewarding to the patient or whoever they may be interacting with. So,
And there's training, and there's also a non-disclosure.
it is.
Which those things are so incredibly important.
Absolutely. The confidentiality agreement, there's training as far as they would attend orientation. It gives them an overview of the hospital, talks about the confidentiality agreement, what's expected, talks about healthcare, health regulations to keep them safe, to keep the patients safe, anyone that they interact with. So it gives them an overview of the program, making sure that they want to move forward in the process.
I think it's so incredible, and I think Centra does such a wonderful job. And I don't know if you know Patty Jerkis, but she's one of my best friends.
I've heard the name.
And Patty was the CEO at Bedford Memorial, which is now Central Bedford Memorial, for quite some time. And so Patty and I would talk about, I think I've sold her and her husband Mike maybe 9 different houses. So we have spent a lot of time together. And we have talked about hospitals and how they work. And I don't think, and I wish, and I hope by this, just this being a tiny, tiny part, that the community can really understand that Centra really works like a machine, but there's so many protective things. I mean, when you're protecting your clients and your patients from every level, including volunteers, that's just amazing that I don't think the general public thinks about.
Absolutely, and it's just as important for them to protect their caregivers the volunteers.
Right. That's exactly
yes. So it's a wide spectrum and always at the forefront of the operation.
It's amazing. So tell us the things that some of the volunteers do. I mean, other than rolling us out when we finally get released.
Right, right. So to start with, let's talk a little bit about the core volunteers. So we have our adult volunteers. A lot of those volunteers are from all different backgrounds, executives, healthcare workers, school teachers, you name it, with a wealth of experience in life, just their, not only just their work experience, but life experience as well. So we might place them, they would have the possibility of being service areas such as discharge, where they're going to actually take the patient when they're being discharged from the hospital to their vehicle. They may be escorting a visitor. Sometimes when the visitors come in, they're a little anxious if they have a loved one there. And so rather than trying to give them directions, that they might hear the first part of it, then we have a volunteer that's going to walk them to where they're going, just to kind of ease the pressure, kind of make it a little more relaxing for them. So that core of adult volunteers are really the volunteers that we depend so much on because they have more availability. They can be there early in the morning. They can be there, in the evening when we need. And then we have our college volunteers. And the college volunteers usually are in a healthcare discipline. And again, they bring a lot of energy. They kind of like the excitement. They might want to be in the emergency department where things are a little busier. And they can assist there. They are checking in on the patients because sometimes there can be long waits. We don't like that, but sometimes there can be. So they're just kind of interacting with the patient, letting them know they're not forgotten. Can they get them anything? Checking on them. Do they need a pillow? Do they need a warm blanket? That type of thing. So the college students tend to enjoy that, and they enjoy discharge as well. And then we have our teen volunteers. You can start to volunteer from the age of 14 through high school.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, and so they are a wonderful asset as well. They're looking to gain some type of experience and might not be ready for employment. And they serve well at our information desk or in discharge again, where they can discharge the patients. But the information desk, is the first face somebody sees when they come into the hospital. It's usually a volunteer. And then when they're leaving in discharge, it might be the last face that they see. So very much an asset to the program.
That is absolutely wonderful. And there's when I was reading through some different things, I mean, there's so many more duties and so many more things that these people do. And as big as the facilities are, to only have 400 or 450 because, and I say that on a positive note, because when I enter any of the different hospitals, there's always someone there and they're ready to help and they always smile, or that's been my experience. And like you said, I'll ask how to get to a certain place and I don't have a poker face. So they're like, he's going to get lost. And they will ask, do you want me to take you? Because I don't know where I'm going. Unlike most men, I'm directionally challenged. The only difference is I admit that, and most men will not admit that.
Right,
Yeah, so tell me some of the positive things, and you brought some things with you, which I'm dying to know.
Right. So if you were to interview our volunteers, most likely, 9 times out of 10, they're going to tell you that they get more out of volunteering than maybe they think the patient or whoever they're interacting with, because they get to interact with that person, give them a little comfort, encourage them, or just be a listening ear, and they feel like that they go home feeling more blessed, I guess is a good point. But so when we're speaking of all the different areas of volunteers, we also have virtual volunteers. They never come on the premises, but they craft items for us, and I've brought some of the items with us. So if you or our family member has ever had the blessing of a newborn baby in Virginia Baptist Hospital, chances are they've gone home with one of these baby caps. And so our virtual volunteers craft all of these items. They craft baby blankets in their handiwork. It's beautiful. Quilts.
So they will crochet that blanket. They will buy the yarn, crochet the blanket, and then just donate.
They do. And so we have approved patterns because there's so many different items that we accept. And so it could be a church group, it could be individuals. Some of the church groups get together, and spend time together crafting for us. But they make all different items: sewing, knitting, crocheting, and even making stuffed animals that we give out to the patients.
And if people can purchase these?
So they don't purchase. These are gifted.
Really?
These are gifted to the patients. Absolutely.
I hate to ask you, but I have to see the blanket.
Oh yeah, the quilt.
The quilt.
And so, this has been, these take a lot of time.
That's what I was getting ready to say.
So this, again, that's why, again, our virtual volunteers are such an asset. But you look at the handiwork and the time that's gone into it. And so this could be given to a patient just as a lap quilt. If they come through and they're in a wheelchair, or, the nurse might come down and say, do you have something that they could cover with? They're feeling a little colder. Another item that we are just starting to do are our fix-it mats. And so our crafters are making these. These are great for our Alzheimer dementia patients. It gives them something to occupy them during the day. And also, it's good for some of our autistic patients. It's things that are safe, but textile. And
textured, different textures.
Keep them busy.
Now, that's one of the most amazing things I've seen.
Absolutely. So, if a person is not crafty, but they want to have a part in this program, then they can donate items. Because, there is a cost to provide in these things. So if they just want to donate items, then we gladly accept their items as well. We'll accept them at the volunteer office at Lynchburg General or at Virginia Baptist Hospital. And speaking of donated items, we also have another area of service that's our customer care card. And our volunteers take the customer care card around and visit the patients. And they offer them, it could be puzzles, word searches, books to read, health and beauty items that they might not have brought with them. All of that is free to the patient. It's a service through volunteer services. And again, we collect items for that. So if there's groups that have a service project and want to donate items, it's a great way to do that.
That is awesome. So tell me, are you responsible for 400 people, or how many?
So I have, under my management, it's about 230, and then there's another probably 125 give and take at Virginia Baptist Hospital. So there's 2 managers, one at Virginia Baptist and one at Lynchburg General.
How do you keep up with that many people?
We have a lot of help.
Yeah, that is amazing.
We do. We have office help, and it's the staff. Our director is there as well. So we have a great staff, work together as a team. But our volunteers make our job very easy.
Well, they do. And I cannot say enough, and that's one of the reasons that I really wanted to have this conversation, to do this podcast, because I think the volunteers are such an important part of Centra. And as I've said, every time I've entered, there's been somebody there that's so helpful. And I look at these people, and I guess I'm so respectful and appreciative because they're volunteering their time.
Right.
And everybody says that time is what you have the most of, but in all actuality, it seems to be the opposite. So, is from the volunteer standpoint, I guess you become attached to these people.
Absolutely.
You become very attached to
Absolutely.
these people.
They're like family.
They really are.
And we have such dedicated volunteers. So just to give a little history, the auxiliaries at both Lynchburg General and Virginia Baptist Hospital started in the 1950s. From women that wanted to give back to the community, but also wanted to help out at the hospital, assist nurse and staff, that type of thing. So they were going in, filling up water pitchers, taking the magazines around, checking in on the patients, interacting with the patients. So that's kind of how it started. And with it being just women in the 1950s, we've now progressed to we're about 60% women, 40% men. And I tell you, even we have volunteers that repair our wheelchairs. There's just it's so many different service areas. Yeah, so many different service areas.
So let me ask you, when people are in the cardiac unit, when they have something, for example, like bypass surgery, and they get the pillows, because they have, where do the pillows come from?
So those are through the Mended Hearts.
Mended Hearts, that's it, yes.
And again, volunteers.
That's a separate part.
That is, and those volunteers are usually, they have been patients themselves as a heart patient. So.
Because all three of my sisters have had bypass surgeries, and they all three have their pillows, which I think is, and when they were in the hospital, they needed those pillows. So, I mean, it's very painful, and it helps when you hold that and you call for whatever the situation may be. It's just, and they hold those pillows pretty sacred.
Right. Well, and on the same token, with our virtual volunteers, we have them crafting neck pillows, because that's something that's used in the hospital. And then, of course, crafting the stuffed animals. And we try and reach out to the community for supplies for that. Like one of the local furniture companies, they donate some stuffing that we can give to them, pass on to them, as they're crafting those items. So that's
awesome.
Right.
So you said, I guess, from before COVID, your volunteer numbers are down.
Yes.
So you need volunteers.
We need volunteers desperately. Yes.
And so how do we let people know that you need volunteers, other than when they watch this?
Yes. So we have made a great effort this year to go out into the community. We've been attending health fairs. Our personnel in the office, they've been reaching out to the high schools, to the colleges, speaking, with the guidance programs, letting them know. And we have had success since the first of the year. So we've had success with the college students. We've had success with the high school students, which we are really liking because they can stay with us. The college students usually go home in the summer. They have their breaks. So then we're at a deficit again. Our high school students have more time in the summer. So we have been able to bring them on board and kind of beef that up a little bit. And then with the adults, we've been attending health fairs that are gauged to all age groups. And trying to recruit that way and just get the word out. And then such as this, we are looking for opportunities to be able to get the word out.
That's great. That's great. So if there's one thing that you could say is the most rewarding thing about your career, what you're doing, what would that be?
The volunteers. I love it. I transitioned into the volunteer department in October. Prior to that, I had been in a totally different field and came to work for Centra managing their gift shops, which again are a part of the auxiliary and staffed with volunteers. That was my wheelhouse. And so with that experience, working with the volunteers, I told my family, I'm more blessed every day getting to work with these people that are giving of their time freely and bring such experience in varied backgrounds that I'm feeling like the blessing is just unbelievable. And they're great people. So when the opportunity came up and I had the opportunity to move in and work directly with the volunteers and the staffing of the volunteers, it was a no-brainer. So.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, Betsy Jones, thank you so much.
Thank
You're
you.
incredible.
We so appreciate the opportunity.
Oh no, thank you for what you do, because those volunteers they're part of the big torso at Centra, which is amazing.
Yes.
And we really appreciate what you do.
Thank you so much.
And I hope you have a great day.
You too.
I'm going to.